We are here, and it is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire, here to bring you the UFC 302 fight card headlined by Islam Makhachev, taking on everyone's favorite fighter who came close but never won a title, Dustin Poirier. I am Chris Olson, here with my two co-hosts. As always, it is Joselyn, and the only Drake I would pick to beat Kendrick Lamar in a rap battle, it is Drake Burden. Guys, we were kind of talking about this, and I'm glad everybody liked that reference. We are very hip here at Fight IQ. We were kind of talking before we went live here that this isn't really the best dog card to play, and when you don't have that option, what's kind of your strategy for how to navigate, and what are you looking for at the card? And I guess Drake, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, even while I was doing my research for this, I have one dog that I'm on, and then there's a two that I could be questionable on that I'll have to try to probably fit in. But for me, this is a favorite heavy card. Makes it tough to build for most contests. Like Joe had already mentioned this, to us, it is more of a cash card in my opinion, and I definitely completely agree with that. But I mean, overall, the card's it's a pretty decent card. And there's some fights I'm excited for, and
yeah, no, I agree, Joe. I think what you were actually saying was darts, and we do have a couple of those that if they come through, they're going to come through big. But otherwise, how are you feeling about this card?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, let's just talk about cash first. One of the 5-round fights is obviously very stackable, and we don't need to bury the lead. It's the one with Strickland. I don't think the main event is stackable at all. I would highly discourage people from stacking the main event, but the co-main event is very stackable. So I'm going to be building cash lineups around stacking the co-main event. In terms of dogs for GPPs, under 8K, there's one dog that I think everybody's going to be on. He's going to be very highly owned. We'll talk about it when we get there. I don't think that's a guarantee. And then you really got to reach, you really got to throw some darts. There's a couple that we're going to discuss, and but I just don't love anybody really. Usually, especially when you have 2 weeks to prepare, like we did this time, you could do a lot of research. And I honestly have done more research than I typically do for a card, just because I had that extra week and I had some time off, and it was there was a lot of early content that was out there, but it didn't really help in terms of trying to find a dog that I like. I think there's some line value on an 8K fighter, and there's some odds value maybe on a sub 8K fighter. But after that, it's really tough. I could make cases for all the favorites, and there's no dog that I really love. There's a couple I like.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. As I said, darts that you can throw, nobody you can really, I think, trust, but we will get to it. Before we do that, though, let me first say, if you would like a 10-day free trial of all RotoWire content, go to www.rotowire.com/free. That is rotowire.com/free. As I say, 10-day free trial, no credit card required. Check out all the content, baseball in full swing, football gearing up. We still got some NBA finals to navigate through, so all that good stuff. Now we are going to proceed to the first fight on this card, and it is Andre Lima at 8,600 taking on newcomer Mitch Raposo at 7,600. Line on this fight: Andre Lima -270, Mitch Raposo +230. We should mention that Raposo is coming in on a bit of a short notice. Is that right? Yeah. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't expect the line to be quite so wide. I am picking Andre Lima to win. I like a little bit about Raposo. He's powerful. He throws in combination. But I don't expect that he's going to be much of a finisher at this level. And a lot of times in the regional scene, he would just let opponents hang around, and he would end up making fights a lot tougher for him than they needed to be. And against a guy like Lima specifically, that's going to be bad news. We saw how durable Lima could be in that UFC debut before the bite that left an indentation, gave him his first UFC win. But he had a rough first round there, and weathered the storm, which I think probably facilitated the bite from his opponent there. A good boxer in the pocket, kind of stands upright, can kind of be pressured, which is why I was kind of looking to fade him initially. As we said, not a lot of dogs on this card, but I just don't see enough in Raposo, especially, as I said, Lima being so tough, so durable. I think if nothing else, he should just be able to outlast Raposo here. So my pick has got to be Andre Lima, although I'm not exactly sure how highly this one scores. I think what we could potentially get is a kickboxing match in the middle of the ring. Oh, and we should say, what was it, a 4-pound miss from Andre Lima?
Big miss at 125, yeah.
So even if Raposo was going to try to wrestle, and we do say it a lot, that miss would make things more difficult in that respect. But having said that, I do think it's going to be a kickboxing match. I do think it's a Lima, and as we said, probably cash only for this one. But let's start with Drake here. How do you see the opener?
Well, we're kicking it off the way we're supposed to, where I'm disagreeing with you. So
Nice.
that's good. I'm actually a big fan of Raposo. I think he's a lot better than people think that he is. He is a 2-time champ in other promotions, and now he gets his UFC shot. I did like Lima up until I saw him fight in his debut, and I was not impressed at all. He was controlled pretty much the entire fight. I mean, if that DQ didn't happen, he didn't win. He wasn't going to win that fight. So he showed a lot of deficiencies on the mat. Raposo is very well. He's pretty gifted on the mat. The 5-pound miss, it does worry me. It will make things a little harder, but I think Raposo is the better overall fighter. And given how the lack of dogs there are for this, I feel confident putting Raposo into my line.
Yeah, on that basis, I wouldn't hit Raposo. Like I said, there are things to like about him. Just didn't like a lot of what I see as not great finishing instincts. And I do expect, wouldn't surprise me if he had another tough first round, but I think ultimately Lima will prevail here. What do you think, Joe? How do you see break our first tie in the first fight here?
Horrible matchup for Raposo. He's a midget can crusher. The 2 promotions that he actually won titles in were not even major, like secondary promotions. He's taking the fight on short notice against an opponent who didn't even try to cut weight. I love when a 125er misses by like more than a couple of pounds, because it really means that they didn't deplete themselves. So I actually like Lima more after the weight miss than I liked him before. And I think 8,600 is really, really fair. I'm going to throw out props. Like I do not like to plagiarize, so I'm going to throw out props. There's a guy that does a pod with Jason Floyd. His name is Pete Rogers. They actually call it Fight HQ, the pod that they do. They used to do a pod for Statistics, Awesome Mo, and they do their kind of own thing. And Pete, who's a fighter, he knows Raposo. Raposo is a New England Cartel guy. They've shared some coaches. New England Cartel, for those of you that don't know, that's the camp of Rob Font and Calvin Cater. They call it the New England Cartel, Boston, Connecticut guys. Pete Rogers is a Connecticut guy. He's trained with Raposo. He knows Raposo. He has Lima as a core play on DraftKings. And their pod is also a DraftKings pod, which is kind of rare because you don't see a lot of DraftKings pods. You see a lot of betting pods now, but they do a DraftKings-oriented pod. So I was already thinking Lima, and they did this pod before the weight miss. So I'm taking what he said. I'm thinking the way I was thinking, watching Raposo, knowing that he's a midget who's a can crusher. If you look at the records of his opponents that he fought, even if you look at like the 7-4 opponent that he fought, that guy was horrible. Those 7 wins were really bad. So I like Lima here a fair amount. I don't know if I'm ready to call him a core play, but I respect this guy, Pete Rogers. I like that he trained with him. I like that they have had similar coaches. And I like that he's actually rooting for Raposo to win because of the fact that he knows him. With all that said, he's got Lima as a core play. So I like Lima a fair amount here. So I'll break the tie.
That's funny to me. A little bit of betrayal, maybe, or maybe you could say integrity because he knows him and he's going the other way. But
yeah, but you got to do. You're doing a show, right? And you want
sure.
you want to give content. You can't let your heart actually, come into play.
Oh, I understand. I just hope Raposo doesn't see the show. That might be a little awkward.
By the way, just a public announcement. I know you've already done the RotoWire public announcement. There is a fairly good chance that I will actually be at the event tomorrow.
Yes, Newark.
Yeah, living the sweet life with Zach and Cody. And no, it is not on behalf of DraftKings. So I may actually be going to that. I have to firm things up once we do this pod, but I may actually be going to that tomorrow.
All right, so look out for Joe. Tell him to buy you a beer if you see him. I'm sure he'll do that very happily. So that'll be nice. Good to go. But right now we're going to move on to the second fight. It is Eileen Perez at 8,700 taking on Joselyn Edwards at 7,500. Line on this fight, excuse me, Perez at -200 and Edwards at +170. I kind of liked Perez when I first saw this because Edwards just can't stop a takedown. We saw how many times she was taken down by Cornoli. Cornoli, I believe is her name, the French fighter that she fought last time out. She actually kind of got roped into her grappling game as well. I think she actually scored 5 takedowns in that fight, which is very unusual for her. Perez, she is a dedicated wrestler, but, kind of lacking in the strength department. And so that led to her being reversed and kind of having a bad third round in her last time out. Joselyn Edwards, I was never a huge fan of her, but I mean, she does keep distance well, and I do like the strength equation here. I think that she can get a lot of maybe in the body locks. Maybe she can wrench it over and get reversals that way. It wouldn't surprise me, and maybe just outwork her on the feet. So it wouldn't shock me for an Edwards win. I think my pick is going to be a slight lean that way, and I'm going to wonder here if somebody has a little bit of a stronger take than me. But I do like the wrestling upside of Eileen Perez because I think it's there. But I'm going to take the kickboxing chop, the distance management, and the strength of Joselyn Edwards and say that is going to be my pick for this one. We did just start with Drake. I know we try to set it up for that so Joe can be on the women's fights, but we will break that rule right now, and we'll start with Joe. Joe, what are you seeing this way?
Okay, so did we give the salaries?
Yes, of course, Joe.
Okay, so we gave the salaries.
We did.
7.5K, Joselyn Edwards. I always like to give Chris a hard time. Here's the interesting thing. One thing I can tell you for sure is this fight will go to a decision. And on a slate where it is very possible that a loss will be part of the optimal lineup, you've got to kind of dig. And I'm on Edwards here, and I will tell you, right, 7,500 is the lowest, tied for the lowest price she's ever been in all her UFC fights going back to 2021. She has a record where she's lost 3 and won 4. Now, one would argue that she should have won the last fight against Cornoli, and she should have lost the fight against Kopylov. So, like, win one, lose one. She was 8,300 against Cornoli and 7,600 against Kopylov. Now, Edwards has a clear striking advantage here. She's got length. She can piece Perez up standing. The key is, can she keep it standing? How long can she keep it standing? Also, Perez has got gas tank issues. We've seen it. We've seen her gas horribly in the third round. So on a card where you are really looking for someone sub 8K to play, I am going to lean, and I don't know if I like it more than Chris, less than Chris, or the same as Chris, but I'm also on Edwards here. GPPs, I mean, I don't think you need to play her in cash, especially if you stack one of the 5-round mains, but I will take Edwards as a GPP play.
Yeah, the more I thought about, the more I did like Edwards, just because I really do feel like she's improving, if only for the way she manages fights and how she approaches opponents. But we will see. Drake, what about you? How do you see the second fight here?
I will be split from you guys again. Though this time it's not anywhere near as far apart. I was on Edwards going into writing my article on Wednesday. And then as I was writing it and looking through things, it was kind of, I mean, aside from the reach and size advantage of Edwards, and I put the striking closer to 50-50 if it weren't for the range. Perez is kind of better in every aspect of the game outside of that. She does have that cardio issue, which is always something to worry about, but she's relentless and brutal, and she wins the first 2 rounds, then that's all she needs, because, you know, we've seen plenty of times where, you know, it's the first 2 rounds, they gas out in the third, and, you know, they still come away with it unless Edwards somehow were to put up a 10-8, which I don't see happening. I think this fight is definitely a lot closer than the odds would indicate on DraftKings early salary wise. So Edwards is an excellent play at 7,500, but I do have Perez winning.
Yeah, that is a good point. And, you know, if Perez can get those rinse and repeat takedowns, it might be an interesting pay up if people are looking for, you know, trying to save that salary. So something to consider there as well. Now, next fight is Basil Hafez at 9,200. Taking on, did you know I was still in the UFC, Mr. Mickey Gall at 7,000. Line on this fight, it is Hafez at -370, Mickey Gall plus 295. And I asked that question rhetorically because I did not, as a matter of fact, know that Mickey Gall was still here. What is up with the camera?
He's not. He was let go. He was brought back.
He was let go and come back. Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
Because it has been, I should say, 2 years. I'm going to go ahead and put my camera up here. It has been 2 years since he last fought. A little over 2 years, actually. And that was the first round finish by Mike Malott. And, you know, there was like a brief period where we thought that Mickey Gall's striking was coming along. That evaporated as quickly as it seemed to appear. And so I really don't know what to make of him here. I could see people going to him just because Hafez is such an unknown quantity. You know, he had the short notice fight again. The short notice fight where he gassed out, he did perform well there. Obviously, we can't really blame him. He was very wrestling heavy. The grappling will be interested in this. I don't think Mickey Gall is a good bottom grappler. I think we've seen that before. I think he's a top control grappler primarily. And, you know, Basil Hafez is going to swing big in the pocket. And if Mickey Gall does try to, like, stick behind a jab and use his footwork, I think that's going to wear thin pretty quickly, especially, as I say, the 2 year layoff there. So I could see an argument for Gall, especially on the slate, as we've mentioned. But for me, I think it's going to be rinse and repeat from Hafez, and he's got to be the pick here. And we will start with Drake, I believe. Drake, how you seeing this
one? Now we agree on something.
All right, good.
I'm just not a fan of Mickey Gall at all. I don't think he's UFC talent. I don't think he's UFC caliber. I just don't like him in the UFC. He should have stayed gone. That said, he is fighting an unknown fighter. What we saw with Hafez against Jack Della Maddalena, he looked good, but I mean, it was entirely wrestling. He had a little bit of striking, but you know, if he puts himself into trouble, which is my worry in this fight, is him beating himself. You could see Gall score really well in the first 2 rounds if it's a finish. But I don't think we see that. I think we see Hafez kind of just play it a little safer and, you know, keep control, maybe clinch, whatever it is. I don't see Gall winning this fight.
Yeah, that's my read as well. And it wouldn't strike me if we saw a little bit more striking from Hafez this time around, especially since I think he's going to be – I think this can just be a situation where if he wants to, he can just kind of outwork Mickey Gall. As I said, down the stretch there, it's going to be really hard to see him going a full hard 15 with that layoff. But having said that, Joe, how do you see this one here?
Pretty much the same way you guys do. I mean, I wish I knew what Gall has been doing for the last few years. I think he entered some grappling tournaments. You know, here's the issue I have. I don't know that Fayez is a great DraftKings play. You know, I would rather probably pay up a couple hundred and pay down a couple hundred. and pick fighters there, then pick Fayez. And again, we are all on Fayez, or I should say the line on Fayez is predominantly based on how good he looked in a loss, a short notice loss. So everyone is saying, wow, I mean, look what he did to JDM, who, by the way, is not a great wrestler, even when he, trains for it. But look how well he did against JDM. And yeah, he did look good. I mean, I would have argued that he probably won that fight taking that fight on short notice. So now that equity is being transferred to a fight against the guy that we don't know what he's been doing for the last 2 years. I wasn't overly high on Mickey Gall. Like, look at who he beat. I mean, obviously CM Punk, that was more of a circus than a fight. Sage, incredibly, athletic, but a guy that could not hack at it at TriStar or any of the big camps. He just couldn't hack it. He said it was too tough. So he trained in his garage with his dad and his sister. So anyway, yeah, I like Fayez here. That's the pick. I just don't know how much of him I am going to get on DraftKings based on fighters above him and fighters below him in salary.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm kind of with Drake here. I actually could see them both trying to have a slow first round. Hafez because he wants a little cage time, and Gall because he hasn't been in there in quite so long. So there's sort of a lot of question marks surrounding it, which makes it, dangerous and interesting in GPPs for both sides. But yeah, I think I agree with the consensus there. Next fight up, one that we alluded to as one of the players that we like, it is Jake Matthews at 8,300 taking on Phil Rowe at 7,900. Line on this fight, Jake Matthews at -160. Phil Rowe comes back at +140. And the first thing that jumps out at you here has to be the height and reach. 6 or 7 inches on both, I believe, or maybe just reach. I'll have to check that out. But in any case, Phil Rowe, really good striker, good defensively. And Jake Matthews, just what can we say about how disappointing he's been over the years? Another one of those guys that I kind of mentioned with Mickey Gall, but to a larger extent, of course, who looked like he was coming on for a minute and then just kind of faded. Just doesn't do enough in fights. Will never wrestle. I mean, you could tell the guy this is the only way you could win a fight, and he just won't do it. So will not wrestle. Should wrestle. Is a grappler. Came in as a grappler. But I would actually expect Rowe to wrestle if anybody does in this fight. That said, Rowe is just really slick at range, really good at sticking people at range, and I just expect him to outwork Jake Matthews here over 3 rounds, and it's really that simple. We're looking for dogs. This is 7,900. Still don't really see this in a GPP world, but I like Rowe to give you maybe your 86, 87, 85, and go on your way. And maybe in a card like this, that will be good enough. But let's see what the boys think here. And we're going to start with Joe first. How you seeing this one?
So Rowe is the buzz boy at MMA Twitter. And I have a couple issues. One is his wins have not very impressive, like the fighters he fought against. He lost to the ghosted Neil Magny. Here's my issue with Matthews, and it's very frustrating, the Celtic kid. He's had some surgeries, which is why he took a little bit of time off prior to coming back recently. My issue with Matthews is that he refuses to train at a good camp. Like, I've always said this about him. He literally trains in his garage with his dad. And it's a real shame. Like, he doesn't even go to like city kickboxing, in that part of the world. And I always said that unless Matthews got into a better camp, he was always going to be a fill-in fighter on a pack rim card. And my issue here is it is a hell of a long trip from Australia to New Jersey, right? It is a hell of a long trip. Now, again, I don't have any insight on when he arrived, like how long he's been in the States. I don't know any of this. If anybody does know, feel free to, ping it here, because, that is something that would be very interesting. If you say he's been in the US for a couple of weeks and he's acclimated, if he arrived on Tuesday or, that would be a problem. With all that said, you would think I'm going to pick Phil Rowe, but I'm not. I'm going to actually pick Matthews here. I think he's going to be very low owned. I think he's a contrarian play for GPPs. I think Rowe is going to be so popular. I'm not going to say that I might even have more of Rowe in GPPs than I will have of Matthews. I mean, I just think he's the one sub 8K fighter that's got the buzz that I think everybody is going to be on. And for that reason, I don't want a lot of them in GPPs simply because I think that, he's going to be overowned. I think Matthews might be underowned. I think Matthews is a better fighter. Yes, Rowe has got freakishly long reach, but if you look at the quality of the competition, I mean, Matthews lost to Morales, who's a very hyped prospect. He didn't do bad. I think, Rowe is no Matthews. No, Rowe is no Morales. I think, he gets back on track here. I don't love the call, but for all those reasons, I'm going to pick Matthews.
Interesting. And I think you swerved me, or maybe it was Drake, because I thought you were going ahead to pick Rowe, but maybe I was mistaken. Drake, what do you see in this fight?
I have Matthews. I actually really like Matthews in this fight because I am in the same boat. I do not find Phil Rowe to be all that talented a fighter. I think Matthews is a much better overall fighter. Could we see him get tagged? Absolutely. His fight IQ is not always there, and he does not wrestle like he should. At some point, you'd think that if he wants to stay and if he wants to win, that he's going to go to his wrestling. And Phil Rowe has suspect takedown defense. This is a match where he could just put him down and lay on him the entire time and win. That's kind of what I'm counting on. We've also seen a little power out of Matthews, so it's not like he doesn't have striking at all. But I like to see him on the mat on this one, and hopefully that's the case here.
Yeah, you do kind of have to bank on it, but I should say, because I went over to take a look, and, when Jake Matthews does win, he does enough. Flowers, 98. Fiallo, 99. That was the knockout. Before that, Sanchez, 87. Not great, but, would still do at 8,300. So, if you do get a win out of him, he's probably going to score. Personally, I think there are too many things going against him, and the fact that he doesn't wrestle, he's one of those guys I've given up on expecting him to do it. So if he does, he will probably win. At least he'll have a better shot, but time will tell.
By the way, guys, how bad do paper straws suck? Do you have paper straws in Wisconsin?
Yeah, and I hate them. Like, so many places went away from them now because of how terrible they are.
You can't even get down a large drink before the. By the way, this is a Diet Dr. Pepper I don't really drink soda all that much, but I got this for free. So, man, this paper straw is just like disintegrating.
Yeah, it disintegrates in your mouth. It's disgusting.
It's horrible, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the restaurants that actually give real straws, like, props. Like, sorry for the tangent. It's just I'm so pissed off about this paper straw. Okay,
that's right. I mean, when are you going on the road there to do your what's the deal stand up bit? We're gonna.
I know. I need to do that. Yeah.
No, but I think we all agree, so we have that in common as well. But we will move on to the next fight now, which is Grant Dawson at 9,300 taking on Joe Solecki at 6,900. Line on this fight, Grant Dawson, sizable favorite, as you might expect, minus 575, taking on, of course, Solecki, plus 425 on the comeback. And as a certified Grant Dawson hater, as somebody who picked Bobby Green to beat him, and he did, I can't pick Joe Solecki in this spot. I just don't think there's any way. And I was ready to do it, but when you watch tape on Joe Solecki, he just does so much nothing. Like he can't strike. He's a top control grappler who was easily reversed by Jared Gordon. So in that sense, what am I even banking on here? So even if he does get takedowns on Grant Dawson, because he does tend to let people take him to the ground, but that's because he's a good scrambler. And I think he's going to be a better scrambler than Joe Solecki. And, Grant Dawson is not a good striker, but, I mean, almost to a fault sometimes, as we saw in the Bobby Green fight, he is a confident striker. And that's going to be enough to make him the better striker in this matchup. So essentially, he's going to win this fight anywhere he can. We've seen in the past Grant Dawson fights not score as well as you might expect, just because he's such a good control grappler that he just kind of lays, and he might score like 83 to 85 in a win. This one might be a little better because I expect him to really be able to take over this fight wherever it goes. So I like Grant Dawson quite a bit here. I think that's a pretty good price. I haven't seen enough. To say I haven't seen enough from Joe Solecki would be understating the case. So Grant Dawson is my pick here, very soundly. And we'll start with Drake, I believe, or is it Joe this time? It's Drake. Okay, Drake, what are you seeing?
I don't got a whole lot to say in this one. Dawson's one of my favorite plays on the whole slate. Yeah. Everything that Joe Solecki does, Dawson does twice as good, if not better than that. So short and sweet, Dawson, easy pick.
Yeah, no, well said, I think. And I believe we're going to make it unanimous, but what do you say, Joe?
Yeah, so we are, but with a caveat. So I was looking at maybe using Joe Solecki as like a cash punt at 6.9K, because if you look at his, obviously he was dropped on his head, so you can't really count that. But when he got dropped on his head and scored 8.6 points against Close, but like prior to that, he's only got one loss. He was 5-1 in the UFC. Now you could argue that maybe he hasn't fought the best competition, but in his loss against Gordon, he scored 52 points in a loss. Now, obviously, different type of fight. He's gotten at least one takedown in every fight except for his fight against Hubbard, who he finished in the first round by sub. So I was kind of looking at, like, is it possible that I could maybe use him as a cash punt? I think this is a Grant Dawson, like, gimme fight. Like, they want to get him back on track. He's training at ATT, Dawson. I think Solecki is the more local fighter, right? I think he's a Philly guy, isn't he? I don't know that for a fact, but I thought he was part of that Philly group of fighters. So it's going to be a really easy commute for him, and maybe that'll prop him up a little bit. I like Dawson to win. I don't have the same level of confidence in playing him on DraftKings, simply because of Chris's point. I don't know that he's going to score that well. I like Almeida to outscore Grant Dawson. So that's, there are other fighters I like that I think will score higher. So I don't expect that I'm going to have a lot of him, but for a win, I'll make it unanimous.
I can see kind of dissecting it in that way and saying he does score well because he does go for takedowns and have control time and things like that. The thing of it is, for me, is I don't think he's going to get anywhere near that kind of control time with Grant Dawson in bottom position. I think he's going to constantly be, in danger of sweeps and subs, and I just don't see a good night for him. But always be on the lookout for punts, and that is a potential one if you choose to go that route. But we will move on to the next fight now, which is where are we? There we are. It is Jailton Almeida at 9,100 taking on Alexander Romanov at 7,100. Line on this fight, we got Jailton at minus 350, Alexander Romanov plus 285, and very easy to not have much confidence in either one of these fighters at the moment, but the one I have the less confidence in is Alexander Romanov. And we kind of just have to go that route. Jailton Almeida still has all the physical attributes, and King Kong, as they call him, is just kind of a big guy. So I'm going to go with physical attributes there. I think, granted, it only happened once, but you can't get that quit in the first round against Alexander Volkov out of your head. At least I can't. Jailton Almeida does get tired as well, but that Curtis Blade fight, that was after a round of like nonstop, continuous grappling and just sort of throwing him around the cage. And if he does that to Romanov, I don't think Romanov is going to survive it. I think Romanov will collapse before that happens. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's in better shape this time around. He is coming off a win after all, but I have to jump on Jailton here. I have a feeling most people are still going to go back to him because you see that fight and you see the kind of work he did get done in the first round. And if you don't have a guy like Curtis Blades, who kind of is a wrestler, knows his way around a takedown and takedown defense and all that kind of stuff, could be, and getting back up after getting taken down, that's something we should know too, which I kind of hit on with the physical attributes. But all this is to say that I think Almeida is probably the clear pick here. Now this is a big sloppy heavyweight clash, so if you're looking for punts, Romanov is one, Jailton Almeida is exploitable, and overall speaking, not a really great fighter, but he's better than Romanov in this spot. So have both if you'd like. Heavyweight mess probably, but I got to go with Almeida here, and we'll start with Joe first. Joe, how you seeing this one?
Trust me that I understand that what I'm about to say is there's some irony in it. I think that Romanov looks like more like he ate Almeida's weight in potatoes. I don't know what happened to this guy. I mean, I actually scouted him back in the day, myself, Brett Apley, Kyle Marley, and Big Dan Levy. We did this Daily Fan MMA thing, or MMA Radio, we called it, and this was during COVID. And every night we put out content, and a lot of people appreciated it. We did all these different things, and one of the things we did was we had to scout fighters who were not in the UFC, who we would like to see in the UFC, and I picked two fighters. One fighter I picked was Romanov. And I loved, the name King Kong. I loved that his style was listed as sumo. You don't see that too often. And he was just a beast. And the other was Odie Osborne. But anyway, so I don't know what happened with Romanov. He flopped. I mean, Juan Espino had a pretty easy time taking him down. I don't expect that Almeida will have a hard time taking him down. I mean, his cardio is for shit. I really like Almeida a lot here. I mean, I understand what happened against Blades, but he did take him down 9 to 10 times. I mean, that's 50 points right there in DraftKings. Like, even if you don't throw any strikes, I don't think it's going to get to 10 takedowns. I don't think that Romanov is going to be able to get up at like Blades was able to get up, who was much better conditioned athlete, better cardio, more skilled as a wrestler, everything that Romanov is not. So, look, I like Almeida a fair bit. I think the salary is a gift at 9.1K. I would have thought that it would have been a lot higher. I think even the betting line is pretty much a gift. Especially you want to bet Almeida by finish. I think that could be a pretty good bet. Some interesting props on DraftKings, actually, if you go in and look at the not props, some what's the word? Promos for this card. There's 2 promos. So if you play DraftKings Sportsbook, there's a couple promos here. One of them is place a bet on knockout, and you get to participate in a pool that they put together. So anyway, I think if I'm going to make a play by knockout, it might be Almeida, but he could also get a sub. So that scares me a little bit. So anyway, in a long roundabout way, I like Almeida a lot here.
Yeah, I agree. Unless Romanov breaks out the forearm choke, and then we might all be in a little bit of trouble. But Drake, how do you see this fight here?
I'm entirely on the side of Joe on this one. I think that Romanov, after that Tybura fight, has just completely lost himself. He went from going 240, rather in shape, to nothing, to being max weight for heavyweights in his last however many fights it's been. And it's not a good look for him. He at 240, he was already struggling with cardio, and now he's one round or bust. And now you're going to be put against a guy that's going to out-muscle you. He's going to out-wrestle you. He's going to we're going to see Almeida finish this in the first 2 rounds, and Romanov is probably not even going to get 5 strikes in.
Yeah, I think you have to go that route. And I should note that I believe he came in at the heavyweight limit this time as well, which is 265. The one thing that's kind of in the back of my head is Almeida got tired and lost. So if he's a little bit hesitant because of that, I wouldn't bank on it, but I do think it's something to keep just in the back of your mind, just in case you want a couple Romanovs. But overall, yeah, I do think the play is soundly Almeida. But we will move on now, and it is Roman Kopylov at 8,200 taking on Cesar Almeida at 8,000. Line on this fight. Almeida at minus 117. Kopylov at minus 103. And the reason I hesitated there is because lines on this fight are still kind of all over the place, depending on what book you look at, that one I just read. I see minus 115 around for a pick'em. I see kind of just hovering around that range, minus 120, minus 100. So they see this as a close fight, the odds makers, that is. I don't really. I love Kopylov in this spot. Just the experience alone. Before Almeida came to the UFC, he had 3 fights. Those all finished in the first round. He's had 2 since then. Kopylov has had 15 fights. He's got a lot of late finish in fights, which means he can stand the test in fights. He can, get worn on a little bit and come back. And Almeida, he's your standard kind of kickboxer who doesn't know takedown defense yet. His takedown defense is try and beat you up when you go for takedowns, which is never a good strategy against anybody good. Kopylov doesn't have an extensive wrestling game, but he does have it. We've seen him use it. And I think he might be the better kickboxer here, too, at least the more composed kickboxer. Almeida, for all his, record 45-8, I think it was something around there. But, he tends to fall over his strikes. He gets kind of wild. And I see Kopylov as sort of more of a technician. So I really do like him everywhere. Not exactly sure why this fight is lined so closely. Kopylov lost to Anthony Hernandez, who couldn't be a more different fighter than Almeida. So I really
know why,
like
Chris? You know why?
Why is that?
Because Almeida beat Alex Pereira in a kick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we got to hang our hat. It's so funny I love when they try to do that. Just quickly, because I remember one of the seasons of Tough. It was one of the heavyweights who had beaten Daniel Cormier in wrestling, and that was his claim to fame. And long story short, we don't even remember that guy's name. So those kind of accolades don't impress me all that much. I'm going Kopylov here, but let's see if the guys disagree. And I believe we start with Joe first. Joe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, wow, you stole some of my thunder. Didn't Almeida get bitten in his last fight? I heard he got a tattoo of a bite mark. I don't know if there's any truth to that rumor.
That's Lima.
Oh, that's okay. That's Lima got bit.
I was going to say
Lima.
Again,
Lima was okay.
Yeah.
I mixed. I'm sorry for the confusion. Lima was the one that got bit. Okay, yeah, maybe that's why he came in 4 pounds overweight. Anyway, okay, so he did not get bit. So again, though, that win against Alex Pereira was when Crocs were cool. That was a long time ago, and I'm with you, man. I know people that bet Almeida at plus 150. Now, I get that that's a good number,
right? And
just from a line perspective, I get it. I do think Almeida is going to be popular on DraftKings because he does offer some line value. Even though it's the closest salaried fight on DraftKings at 8.2 for Kopylov and 8K for Almeida. For that reason, I think Almeida will be popular. I'm with Chris. Everything you said, I think Kopylov is the better MMA fighter by far. I think he's really coming into his own. I heard he's been spending a lot of time in Dagestan working on his grappling. If he puts his singlet on in this fight, he can dominate. Like, he can literally dominate if he puts his singlet on and decides to do any grappling at all. I don't like it for him if he just tries to kickbox with them, but I think he's coming into his own. I like his development. I like him in this fight. I'm thinking about betting it, especially at these numbers. So give me Roman Kopylov.
Yeah, I like it all over, to be honest. And I think guys like Adesanya and Pereira are the outliers. I think way more often you get guys like Gokhan Saki, who kind of just out of nowhere gets sparked by light heavyweights who kind of just throw heavy strikes because they're
you mean the Turkish Mike Tyson, right? The Turkish
Tyson, yes, exactly, yeah. Right. His career was a little bit shorter, but yeah, until he shows me something, I have reason to expect nothing, and so that's kind of how I'm going into this fight. But we'll see how Drake sees it. How do you see this one here?
Make it 3 for 3. Kopylov should be a much bigger favorite than he is. There is absolutely no reason Almeida is this close. I get that he's a talented fighter. He's an extremely talented striker. He's definitely got fast hands. But to say that he's anywhere near the level of Kopylov right now is it's embarrassing. Kopylov has the experience edge. He probably has the power edge, and he definitely has the ground edge. So I love Kopylov at this fight. And, you know, at his price, he's right in the middle. It's good. This fight is going to be popular on DraftKings. With both fighters being right in the middle, I can see both fighters being over 30% owned. But Kopylov definitely should have the edge here.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to have quite a lot of Kopylov unapologetically, and you know, this is the kind of fight where I don't mind if it ruins my night. I have it, and I'm going with it. So I think that we are kind of all in agreement there. But before we move on with the main card, we are going to take a short break for the podcast only listeners, and we will be right back. And we're back. Thank you all so much for being here. We are going to move on with the main card now. It is Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos. Oh, I read it backwards. Randy Brown at 8,500 taking on Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos at 7,700. Line on this fight: Randy Brown minus 175 taking on Dos Santos, coming back at plus 150. And you know, Dos Santos, I always like him because he's tough and he's athletic and he can do a lot of things in there. He can wrestle if he really has to. We've seen it a time or two. But I just think Randy Brown is probably going to be the more solid fighter here. I like him to sort of stick Zaleski out at range there and kind of get his work done. Kind of get his work done in the clinch as well. Maybe if he's not the better pure jiu-jitsu guy, I think he's probably the stronger fighter, and maybe he's going to be the more suffocating grappler, especially in those 50-50 positions. This isn't a fight I'm very interested in for DraftKings purposes. If I'm being honest, I don't really see it finishing. I don't really see it scoring all that well. Although you know, Zaleski can be, as I said, a high octane, but this might be a little different with the reach disadvantage there. And I'm going to kind of veer away from this one, but my pick is going to be Randy Brown. And we'll start with Joe here. Joe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I don't know how you found the spot in my head, because this is like the second fight in a row where everything you said, I don't know what's going on. I know I was late, so I don't know how. Obviously, we did not talk about this before because I jumped on this late. Pretty much everything you said. I don't like this fight for DraftKings all that much. I don't see it scoring very highly. You know, Elizeu Dos Santos does not score very well, even in his wins. He could be a fairly popular dog at what is he now? Plus 150-ish. You know, Randy Brown was the guy that infamously was knocked out by Nico Price from an up punch while on top of him, which was very interesting. Yeah, I don't know that you'll ever see that again. So yeah, I mean, look, I've you know, Randy Brown has been in the UFC for quite a while. I remember I watched a lot of tape and picked him in his debut fight in the UFC way back. Queens guy, local. I like him to get the win. I just don't know how much of this I want in DraftKings.
Yeah, we are in agreement, but let's see. Drake has been the tiebreaker many a time tonight, so let's see if he's going to break that streak. Drake, how do you see this one?
I see it the exact same way. In fact,
right.
It's almost identical to what I have written in my article. I like Brown in this one, but it's not something that I'm big on.
Yeah, you know, kind of a letdown fight for this main card. If I do say so myself, I'm going to be sort of looking past this one, but definitely not looking past the next fight, which is Alex Morono at 8,900 taking on Nico Price at 7,300. Line on this fight is minus 250 for Morono, plus 210 for Nico Price. And we talked about this one a little bit beforehand, and we're going to get some disagreement here, but I just don't get the line. You can tell me that Nico Price's chin is shot, but he's been in wars before that. Robbie Lawler fight, got caught in the clinch. Morono just kind of stands flat-footed and throws big in the pocket, sort of these big looping strikes. You know, Tim Means was having his fair share of success against him, especially at the very end of the first round, landed kind of a shovel uppercut that put him on skates. And Nico Price is kind of a more active, younger Tim Means, more ferocious kind of. They're both defenses aren't that great. Talking about Means and Nico Price there, but Morono, I don't really see him as a knockout threat. He got a late knockout in that Ponzinibbio fight. He got the opportunistic submission against Means there, which was a nip and tuck fight for as long as that lasted. And I think Price is just going to be able to overwhelm him here and kind of just march him down and do his thing. If they do go to grappling, Nico Price, last I knew he was a purple belt. He may have upgraded since then, but nevertheless, we have seen some slick jiu-jitsu from him in the octagon, and I think people are overlooking this. Price has been a warrior. He has been. I know we all love dogs who fight for our money. Price is that. The Robbie Lawler fight notwithstanding. So I love the Price here. I'm going to be a sucker for it. We'll see what happens. But I am going Nico Price in this one, and I'm going to let Drake get in there because he was chomping at the bit before. So go ahead, Drake. How am I wrong on this one?
I can't see it. Price is going to have to prove me wrong because what we've seen out of Price, even over the last 5 fights, going back to the Cowboy Cerrone fight, he beat an aging fighter, and that's really the best we've seen him in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So I have no faith in him. Morono is the better striker. Morono is going to stand there and tag him the entire fight. Price isn't going to. I don't think Price does anything.
All right, Price does nothing. That will be interesting. So the price is wrong for Drake, in other words. Joe, how do you see this one? Am I that wrong? Am I that far off, Joe?
Yeah, I think you are. Look, Price had a flash knockout of Morono, which I think is why Morono was willing to take this fight on short notice. This fight could get interesting if it gets into round 3. I really do think that, but man, it's not. Price's wins haven't aged well, other than the up punching Randy Brown, which was freakish. Freaking ghost of Robbie Lawler knocking him out. That did not inspire confidence at all. I think it could be an interesting fight. Would it surprise me if there was a flash knockout either way? No. Do I think Price is going to be popular in GPPs? Probably. This is going to be a fighter that people are going to, especially at his price point. What is he, 7.3K?
7.3.
People are going to, what is it?
7.3, yes.
Yeah, 7.3. I think he's going to be pretty popular. So, yeah, I mean, but I agree with everything that Drake said about Morono. He is the most unathletic looking fighter. Like, he's got a perpetual dad bod. But with that said, I think he wants revenge. That's the reason why he agreed to step up and take this. I think he's going to be motivated. I don't know that he has 3 rounds of cardio, so I do think he'll be looking to finish this fight early. Could be a sneaky GPP play. It really could, because he will look to finish this fight in rounds 1 and 2, and avenge his honor against Price. Price always gives guys the fights that they want, so I can certainly see that happening here. So give me Moreno.
All right, and just to let you guys see that I am an unbiased, objective controller of the board here. Ty says Price is a regional level talent. I say that we will see. But for now, we're going to move on to the next fight, which is, as we get down further into the card here, it is Kevin Holland at 9,000 taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk at 7,200. Line on this fight is Holland minus 280, Oleksiejczuk plus 240, and this is way more of a line that I can get in tune with. I just don't know how you look at Oleksiejczuk getting absolutely pieced up by Chidi Njokuani, and then look at a guy like Kevin Holland who almost has the exact same measurements and think it's going to go any much differently with him walking into range. The only way I think it's going to go differently is Chidi Njokuani is a one-round fighter, whereas I don't think Kevin Holland is. He's disappointed us with kind of, screwball antics in the cage that kind of plagued him since he's been here, since he's been on the Contender Series. But also a good grappler if he wants to, which is saying a lot. But Oleksiejczuk, he uses his speed and he uses his power to get ahead, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that here. Specifically, as I said, with the attribute deficiencies that he's going to suffer. I actually really like Holland here. The only real danger is if Holland plays with his food, which he has in the past. So, but otherwise, I think Holland's got literally everything going for him here. I like him quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and pick him. And I think we're going to go ahead and start with Joe first. Joe, how do you see this?
Yeah, I agree. I think Lord Michal is going to be somewhat popular as a punt in GPPs because he has the finishing potential. And as you mentioned, Holland is been known to play with his food a bit. Yes, Ty, we agree. Yeah, that's part of the problem. Like he definitely fights to entertain, which is not always having the highest fight IQ. So that concerns me a little bit. Lord Michal, Kevin Holland's got pretty good, has got a pretty good chin. So I don't know. I mean, it's also important to know, and I don't know if you mentioned this, I apologize if I missed it. Holland is going up from 170 to 185, where Michal is coming down from 205 to 185. So, look, I think Holland will have a speed advantage, but Michal will have the power advantage. And I do think Holland is better at 170 than he is at 185. He's never really had a lot of trouble making weight. So that's interesting. I will have a few shares in GPPs. Again, I don't think this is a great GPP card, so I'm going to have a few shares of Lord Michal at as a GPP punt. I don't know that I like Holland a lot because of the ambiguity and a fight IQ. He should win the fight. How is he going to score? I don't know. So yeah, I'll take Holland for the win.
Yeah, I've liked Oleksiejczuk in the past. It's just that when he wins fights, it's generally by knockout or otherwise dominant fashion, and I just don't see him dominating Holland in that way, so I couldn't go there here. But we will see Drake break the tie once again. So, Drake, how do you see this one?
Holland.
Yeah.
I worry about him doing what he does best and yapping in the cage. It is always going to be concerned. It makes him almost a pure GPP fighter in any fight that he's got. But I just think that he's, the range is going to be huge in this fight. And I don't think that Oleksiejczuk is going to have a lot of luck getting into the pocket. Could he get in there and crack him? Yeah, absolutely, especially with how much Holland talks. But at some point, Holland has to start taking things seriously. And if he wants to move up, then this is kind of where he needs to start. He needs to win this fight. And, then he can start working his way back in, into the top. But I also don't think that this will have a big DFS score. I have it at a lower end, so I probably won't play a whole lot of him.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, we have seen Holland come out and get some quick finishes before. It's kind of feast or famine with a Kevin Holland, unless he's in there with somebody who can give him a war like a Wonder Boy Thompson. But, otherwise it is kind of tough. I'm probably going to have a little bit more of him just because I couldn't get past the similarities in that Chidi and Njokuani fight and how much he just got hurt. And if Njokuani's gas tank was just a little bit better, how that was an almost sure loss for Oleksiejczuk. So that's where I'm going to go for that one, but definitely understand the concerns. And on that note, we are going to go ahead and move to the co-main event. It is Sean Strickland at 8,800 taking on Paulo, the Eraser Costa at 7,400. Line on the co-main event is Strickland at minus 245, Costa at plus 210. And I should say first that I would never completely count Paulo Costa out of any fight. He's so athletic. He's so explosive. You saw him land that head kick on Whitaker at the end of the first round in their fight. And, if there's 30 seconds left in that fight, could be quite a different story. But that's the other thing about him, too, is just his kicks in general are really good. They're really fluid. They're really powerful. He's developed the jab, which is okay. But my main concern here, and something I couldn't get away from when I was looking at tape, because I never miss the opportunity to pick against Sean Strickland if I can, but I couldn't do it here just because you look at his fights against Israel Adesanya, you look at that fight against Robert Whitaker, he just got lit up on counters, and that's what Sean Strickland does best. Sean Strickland is going to stick jabs in his face Costa's going to try to come back, and Sean Strickland is going to light him on fire. I see that happening over and over again in this fight until Paulo Costa can take no more. Like I said, the kicks are in play, and a nice athletic head kick has done wonders. We can ask Mr. Dos Santos about that further down the card, so it is possible. But just who's the better fighter is Sean Strickland. I will say that Costa is kind of has a freakish ability to recover. It's almost like a couple of fights, you just think he's out of it, and then in the third and fourth round, he actually seems to do better in those fights. So if it's a longer fight, as weird as this is to say, I think it might favor Costa a little bit, but I still have to go ahead and pick Sean Strickland here. Just the dynamic favors Strickland far too much, I think. So my pick is Strickland, and I think we're starting with Drake for the co-main event here. Drake, how you see it?
Costa is trash. He is not a good fighter. Go look at his record. Tell me who he's fought. An aging Faber? An aging Romero? What other wins does he have? None. An aging Rockhold? That was his last win. He has not beaten anybody, and he comes in, he fights Whitaker, he gets completely just demolished, and it's going to be the same thing here. Strickland fights with such an odd, unorthodox style. He keeps his hands high and is guarded the entire time. Costa does not attack the body enough. Strickland is just going to piece him up for 25 minutes.
I do have to say one thing, which is that at the time, very few people were picking Costa to win that Romero fight. But the rest of your points are well taken, of course, and it's just hard to imagine that it's not enough consistent offense. I think is basically the problem from Costa. But either way, we both are in on Strickland, and I saw Joe shaking his head when I dared even give a little praise to Paulo Costa. So I kind of get the feeling I know where he is here. But Joe, why don't you solidify?
Well, it's not that; it's the fact that you think that the 5 rounds benefits Costa.
I just remember him in the Marvin Vettori fight when he had like a week's notice. But
yeah, do you remember him death gassing against Luke Rockhold in a 3-round fight? He could not put away Luke Rockhold. Do you know that this is the first time since 2016 that Costa's fought more than once in a year? I mean, this guy has always got a reason for why he can't fight. I love Strickland here. I mean, look, I can see Costa having a good first round, but I also I see some and again, I'm burying the lead as it relates to hot takes, but I could also see Sean putting him away in the later rounds as Costa gasses. Now you can bet Sean Strickland to win the fight in rounds 3 or 4 at plus 650. You could bet Sean Strickland to win in round 5 at plus 10 at plus 10 to 1 at plus 1,000. So I'm going to take a little sprinkle there, but as a DraftKings play, if this fight even goes the distance, I mean, he could land 200 significant strikes. I mean, he could put up a monster score, a Leon Murphy type of score. So I like Strickland a lot here. I think this fight is very stackable because I could see Costa lasting 3 rounds and landing 100 strikes. But I really like Sean Strickland here a lot.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I still think Costa's kicks are nice, but we'll move away from it because I don't want to defend a guy too heavily who I'm not.
No, they are. No, and again, like I said, I even admitted that he could have a really good first round.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting. Like I think the division is better when Costa's in it. I just think he's an exciting fighter.
Just remember, power doesn't make you a good fighter.
Well, I mean, at middleweight it almost does. But all right, we will move on because we do have to talk about the main event, which we may be talking about in a similar fashion. But let's see. It is Islam Makhachev at 9,500 taking on Dustin Poirier at 6,700. Line on this fight is appropriately wide. It is minus 650 for Islam Makhachev and plus 475 for Dustin Poirier. And I feel like we have the same discussion every time. And you know what's funny? It's every time it's one of these ATT guys because it's RDA too. It's Dustin Poirier. They all seem to have the same problem. They cannot get their backs off of the fence. They're great at leg kicks. They're good at a lot of things. They're good boxers. They're good defensive fighters. They cannot get their backs off the cage. And that is one of the reasons why I actually picked Conor McGregor in their second fight. And to Dustin's credit, he put his back against the cage and he beat Conor McGregor anyway. I don't think that's going to happen against Islam Makhachev. I think Islam Makhachev is just way too good of a control grappler. He's a decent striker too. We've seen that. He's got some very impressive knockouts and knockdowns in his career now. Is he going to want to strike too long with Poirier? Maybe not, but I do expect him to test the waters a little bit here. I do expect that, but I expect the wrestling to come fairly quickly as well. And once it does, I just don't think Poirier is going to get away because, we've never seen him get away. He's never really beaten any of these good grapplers. There's always a first time. And, I would argue that Dustin Poirier gave Khabib Nurmagomedov the biggest scare he had in his career when he landed that left hook that had him feverishly backing away. But unless he lands a big shot like that, it's just not going to happen. I should bring up, it's compulsory to say that it was a left hook that felled Islam Makhachev against Adriano Martins. That was a very, very long time ago. Can't bank on that certainly, but if it's in your mind, 6,700 for the last shot for Poirier here. But Islam Makhachev, it's got to be all the way. I think he has to be your pick for the main event. And the main event, we're starting with Drake or Joe. Okay, Joe, absolutely. Joe, what do you see for this one?
Okay, so here's a stat for you. Props to Dog or Pass podcast. My favorite Canadian, Cody Safrick, followed by Paul Shag, of course. 155, lightweight or lower. Fighters, 35 years or older. In a title fight, 0-15. There's the stat for you right there. I like Islam here. I mean, look, can Poirier get lucky? Look, I see this as a repeat of the Khabib fight. I really do. Like where Poirier just got taken down and kind of dominated. He's got a 62% takedown defense. That is not great, especially against a relentless Dagestani wrestler like Islam Makhachev. I don't know that the line offers a heck of a lot of value in betting. And I have a potential issue too with DraftKings. Like if he finishes this fight too early, if he gets like one takedown, and gets some control time and grinds him and doesn't land a whole lot of strikes, like he is a really expensive fighter. I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just saying I could make a case for not playing him, especially in cash. I honestly think that Strickland is a way better play in cash. Now look, he could get him down. He could choke him out quick. I mean, I think Strickland has more of the like 125 and up potential. Is he safer than Makhachev? No. Islam is a much safer play. But I think he's hard to get to unless you want to take two sub 8K fighters, which I really don't on this slate. So give me Islam and still like it. I don't think there's a whole lot of value in betting him at minus 650. But yeah, we'll give him the win here and still.
All right, Drake, go ahead and close out the card for us.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I really hate going against Dustin. He's one of my favorite fighters. And, he's also mentioned retirement, which it's never a good thing when a fighter mentions that. He puts his gloves down after this fight. I'm going to be really upset, just to throw that out there. But I do like Islam to win this fight. Like Joe said, it's going to be the Khabib fight all over again. And I don't expect Dustin to have a whole lot of success in this one.
Yeah, I can definitely see that view, but I will say, just in terms of DraftKings scoring and the fear of finishing too early, Oliveira and Khabib fights both into round 3, so we could see a little bit more action there. I do think that I tend to think Islam's going to have to wear him down a little bit. I don't think he's going to just go right in there, take him down, and sub him. I think a fresh Dustin Poirier is going to be a little bit a little bit more tricky than that. But we shall see. All three of us picking Islam, and at the end of the day, comprehensively.
But by the way, did you guys know, and I don't think I knew this, were you guys aware of the really bad staph infection that Saint Denis had going into that fight against Poirier?
Not
Like,
before.
I don't think I knew about that. He probably should have not fought. No, not taking anything away at all from Poirier. That was like a great win for him. But like you have to think, like, what if he didn't have a really bad staph infection on his head, no less? That has got to deplete you a little bit. So I don't want to take anything away from him. I just want to kind of put it out there that, it's not an asterisk, but it's something that, honestly, I don't think I knew going into that fight. I probably would have had a hell of a lot more Poirier had I known that, one of the fighters that Saint Denis was coming in with a staph infection.
Well, a funny thing to mention, because now that you bring it up, we should point out the speculation has been that Islam Makhachev is dealing with a staph infection.
Really?
In his leg, yes.
Are you fucking kidding? Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Are you kidding me?
No. They took pictures of his leg. It looks kind of all like black and blue, kind of gnarly.
Now, how kind of luck does Poirier have fighting back-to-back fighters for coming in with staph infections? I did not know that. That might actually be more of a reason for Islam to try to get it over sooner.
Yeah, it's true. I should say that I am not very worried about that. I don't put a lot of stock into that. I think if someone's gonna fight, they're gonna, unless it's really serious, unless it's something like TJ Dillashaw has no shoulder or something.
Look, I've actually, every time I've seen fights where a fighter noticeably had a staph infection, has not ended well for them. I think about Kevin Lee. Yeah, Kevin Lee. Look at that. Kevin Lee would have lost to Ferguson regardless of staph. I don't know.
I agree.
And plus, Kevin Lee also was cutting a ton of weight, like to get down to 155. I think the combination of Costa has staph.
I think he was messing around, but he did post a picture of like a cut on his foot or something that kind of looked like staph. So I'm not sure. But
thank you, Zero. What a cool handle, by the way. Thank you, Zero. It makes me like Strickland even more if Costa has staph. I love his interviews with Nina. I don't know if you guys follow her, Nina Drama. She's great. I mean, former like Playmate of the Year, whatever, but now she's kind of doing MMA interviews and she works for the UFC, and she just has hilarious like interviews with some of these fighters. Like she's been a big Strickland supporter, like even before Strickland like won the title and got really, really famous, and they've got such a great rapport going back and forth. So I would highly encourage you to both follow her and watch some of her interviews. She's got some great interviews.
Not as a funny joke here that I should contextualize because I saw this.
Oh, come on, Nan. She's not that old.
Well, because somebody put up like, oh, she's 30?
Nan. Come on. Nan, you would kick her out of bed for eating crackers? No, you wouldn't.
No. It was just silly because somebody, there's so much content farming these days that people just put up anything.
Now, she has got a rack that's held up quite well.
But I did think it was funny.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, please do. With that, we're going to.
Chris is the morality police.
We're going to. I'm the moving along police because we ended the main card about 5-10 minutes ago. We have not gotten to.
Okay, I'm gonna give you my hot take first since I already gave it.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
My hot take is Strickland rounds 3 and 4 plus 650. Strickland in round 5 plus 1,000. Take a little sprinkle if you want. You could actually bet Strickland. It's one way or the other. It's round 3 is either 6-1 and round 4 is 8-1, or round 3 is 8-1 and round 4 is 6-1. You could also play them by round, but I'm going to do the rounds 3 and 4. It's plus 650. I'm going to take a little sprinkle there, and I'm going to play a little sprinkle on round 5 plus 1,000. But I'm also betting Strickland to win. And here's the other thing: I am going to do a parlay. It's not very sexy. It's Strickland and Almeida, and it gets you like 127 or something like that.
A parlay, really?
Yeah, you could get if you play Strickland and Almeida, you're getting minus 123 in a parlay, which I like a lot.
Right. Drake and I just kind of looked at each other a little bit, like, yeah, but that's all right. To each their own, and we will see.
What, you don't like minus 123?
For Almeida, no, I told you I'm in love with Kopylov on the slate, so that's just how it is.
Yeah, but I mean, I like Almeida and Strickland's chances to win more than I like Kopilov's. So I'll take minus 123 all day long.
All right, fair enough. Drake, you got a hot take for us?
So I've got. It's funny that he said that because I have Strickland Almeida, but I threw in Kopylov and it puts it to plus 266. But then I've got one that I know neither one of you will like, but I like it. And it is Mitch Raposo wins by submission, which is plus 1,400.
Ooh, all right.
I'll take a sprinkle on that at plus 1,400.
Yeah, sprinkles all day. You know.
Yeah, I'll play that to win $1 grand. I mean, what is that going to be? $70?
You know what? I forgot to ask this chat because I was trying to rein in Joe, but hot takes, put them in the box there. I will read them out and I'll vamp a little bit so that if you do have them, you're trying to get there. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get them in. Overall, though, I do think this is kind of a fun card. I'll be watching with them. I always like when I have something really against the grain. Like I'm glad I was able to find one thing. So I have that Nico price, which is that one thing, and the whole night will hinge on that. And then if he loses, I'll be kind of upset. And I know I'll hear from Drake. I want to hear the end of it.
So Chris, if you like Nico Price,
yes,
I don't see him winning a decision. Why don't you play him by knockout?
Well, we haven't gotten to my hot take yet, sir.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Well, let's see. We have new comments down here. What do we got? Makhachev by Kimura Americana. Wow. Plus 3,000. They get that specific? Do they really?
Not on DraftKings, they don't.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
But if that is a thing, that's interesting.
Wow, cool.
What Ty, if you have it up, what are his odds to win by arm triangle? Because if he's going to submit Dustin, it's probably going to be by a triangle.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if you do have that at the ready, Ty. If not, don't worry about it. But I would be interested to know myself. In the meantime, I will give my hot take, which you may have already guessed. It is Nico Price to win by knockout. I saw at plus 350. So kind of a nice little sprinkle there. I'm sure
I might want a little more, but I get it.
I was gonna say that I'm sure these guys would want it to be a little bit higher. Yeah. I actually quite like it. So we will see how it goes there. I would imagine it is way less, as Ty says, for the arm triangle. Especially we've already seen it.
Way less.
We've already seen it against Charles Oliveira. Islam by RNC. Ooh, so we have a lot of specialty, exactos for how fights are going to go. Okay, and Non is just getting silly with it. Raposo by body shot KO. He finished his last fight by a kick to the body, so why not? But that one, if you could find it, would probably be astronomical. So
what is Raposo by KO, Drake? Do you know?
I can find it quickly. Hang on here.
By knockouts plus 1,100.
Oh,
maybe a little bit there.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Maybe blend them.
That's not bad, especially he is a big puncher. Like I said, don't really like his finishing instincts, but that is a big number.
So if you want to get a little dangerous, real quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think that Lima survives in the first round, and so I think a submission would be more likely in the second. Raposo by sub in round 2 is plus 3,300.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. Okay.
And it's interesting to take those kind of lines against two sort of relatively unknown fighters because nothing should be that out of whack, and yet it is. So I do like those shots, even if I don't technically agree with the plays themselves. But going once, going twice, folks, and that is gonna do it for this edition of Fight IQ. UFC 302. We will see you on Saturday. If you are on Twitter, we will be there probably commenting on the fight and being very angry if our picks don't come in. But otherwise, we will see you next month, guys. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great night and good luck tomorrow.
Peace.